Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Wednesday, December 31st, 2025, also called New Year's Eve. And today we are live to ring in the new year, prematurely, of course, and discuss 2025 farming, soccer, whatever you all want, especially soccer. So let's do it. All right. Well, welcome in everyone. As you all come in, as people trickle into the feed, I will take a couple minutes to let you all get settled and let you get your questions in. Mike is there. You can say hi to Mike. He's in the chat. Give Mike your questions. Just any questions you all have about the growing season, about farming, whatever you all want to talk about. I'm up for about an hour of just whatever. So make sure to get your questions into Mike. You can put them in the chat. He will get them to me. Also, if you want to guarantee that your question gets answered, because sometimes we get more than we can get to, you can do the super chat. That is one way to support our work of keeping this information free and open to anyone and everyone. And then that also raises your question up to the top. So, anyway, yeah, make sure to get those in to Mike. While we wait for the people to kind of trickle in, I'm going to do a quick ad read right here at the top. Today's live is brought to you by our friends at Johnny's Selected Seeds. Johnny's Selected Seeds is a proud supporter of Growers Daily. At Johnny's, they do more than sell seeds. They grow them, they trial them to see how those seeds perform on Johnny's Research Farm there in Maine and across the US and Canada. Only the best varieties are added to their catalog and website. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seeding to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner at johnnysseeds.com. Huge shouts to Johnny's for their support over the years. I mean, Johnny's is probably, up there with BCS, one of our longest supporters. So really, really appreciate them. How are you all feeling about this New Year's? Here, let's check in on the chat. As you come in, again, make sure to get your questions in there. Mike is hanging out, so you can say hi to Mike. Get your questions in to Mike and any questions you have, any farming questions, whatever. And he will get them to me, and we will talk a little bit about, growing season, about last year, about next year, about whatever you all want. Again, super chats will move to the top of the list because we often get more questions than we can get to. But as you come in, yeah, let Mike know. How's everybody feeling about their new year? I feel like, one, it's been weird weather-wise, so I have no idea what to expect for January. I mean, it looks kind of mild right now. It looks like it's in the 40s and 50s, with some temperatures down in the 20s. But that's really only the first 2 weeks. It could easily be the complete opposite for the latter half of the month. Usually what happens in January is we get this pretty cold. Last year was really, really cold. We get pretty cold, but we also get this little taste of spring, 2 or 3 days that are in the 70s. And then at the end of those 2 or 3 days, we get something like we got the other day where it drops 50, 60 degrees in one day. But we, that's kind of I always think of those, we get those in the winter time, we get that 1 or 2, that little taste of spring. And then in the summer, we often, in July and August, we often get these little tastes of fall where it gets down into the 40s a couple times. And I kind of love that. It's just reminding you that things are about to change. And just a reminder for all of our new folks that have trickled in, make sure to get your questions in to Mike, Farmer Mike, in the show thread there, or in the chat thread. And I will get to those as soon as we have a bunch. And let's see, we'll just kick it off with at Excel101, who writes, let's talk about sending the same penalty kicker again. I think it hurt Brighton yesterday to do them so close together. I actually agree with that. I was thinking about that same thing. So we got 2 penalties that were really close together, and Danny Welbeck took both of them. And the problem with that is that usually you're only taking 1 in a match, right? But if you take 2, your percentage of missing the second one actually goes up considerably. And I don't know what the stats are on this. I'm sure The Athletic has done a good detailed report of it, but it's fascinating to think, just think about this mentally. You're going to miss probably somewhere around 2 or 3 out of every 10 that you shoot. So if you get both of those really close together and you don't have that momentum and you have that going in your brain, the odds of missing the second one are actually pretty high, I would think. But yeah, I kind of wish they'd gone with somebody else, but I don't know who else they would have gone with. We don't really have another great penalty kicker beyond Welbs. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer to see that. If it was the crossbar challenge, though, we would have, had an extra point there. So make sure to sign Danny up for that. All right, so let's talk about Danny, or wait, Dwayne Thornton, somewhere around there. Darwin. Can you talk about starting a lettuce farm? Well, I mean, I kind of what I run is a lettuce farm at this point, but starting lettuce is great on a lot of, it's a really, really good entry into market gardening because it's pretty fast turnover. It's relatively easy to sell depending on the area that you're in. It's a good way to get into the business, and it doesn't take much space. It's a very shallow rooted crop too. So like your disease pressure can be lower. I have friends who grow a lot of lettuce and now suffer from some fungal issues, but as long as you keep your soil pretty healthy, and you rotate some, right? You're not growing lettuce after lettuce after lettuce after lettuce. It's like one of the more, the easier entry level crops. Now, there's some things that you have to take into consideration, right? Like in terms of the early spring, it's super easy to grow, lettuce because it can tolerate a little cold. It likes those like lengthening days a little bit. And then the same thing in the fall and even into the winter, it'll hold really well. The challenge with lettuce is in the summertime when it's, hot and lettuce wants to bolt. So like as you get closer, for us here in zone 6B, it's kind of like as you get closer to June, you really have to start thinking about having how you're going to cool your lettuce down, both at planting time and through establishment periods. So usually we'll throw like if I'm planting in June and it's hot, or definitely when I'm planting in July and August, I plant the lettuce, I throw the shade cloth over it. So you have to think about that infrastructure. I watered in really, really well. So your irrigation has to be on point. And then often I'm misting it. And I've been experimenting more with that Sumi soaker, to kind of help with that irrigation and that misting. That's cool. It seems like it uses a decent amount of water, but it is a cool option. So I'm going to experiment more with putting that on a timer this year, hopefully. But I mean, infrastructure wise, it's pretty low. You do have to have water for sure, because as it dries out, your lettuce gets thinner, so it doesn't weigh as much. The yield goes down. So that's one thing. That's definitely one thing to keep into consideration. And then they also asked, how many acres do you need to make it profitable? I mean, depends on what you mean by profitable and what's going into your profit measurement, right? Like, are you paying for the land? Is the farm expected to pay for some percentage of the land? That changes your profitability. It really just depends on your particular situation and what you're considering, what it needs to pay for, like what overhead costs you're expecting it to cover. But not very much. I mean, it really, like, you could have a pretty good lettuce farm on a quarter acre, just depending on how much you're selling it for, what your market is like, what your skill set is like in terms of maximizing that space. And then you could do that throughout the middle of the summer. Really, like, that's when we sell the most lettuce and at the highest price, when everybody has tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff, but nobody else has lettuce. So in the middle of the summer in Kentucky, like, we can just roll on lettuce. It's super, super easy. So, I mean, it's a pretty easy, like, I think, crop in general. Like, it pretty profitable from a pretty slow, startup point, I guess. You could think, like, trying to think of a good way to say it. I mean, it doesn't take much. It just requires what cost it has to cover. So, I mean, as little as an eighth of an acre, I've seen people, making a profit on that business. It's easy to profit from, because you're talking about like a 6-week crop, depending on which, varieties you grow. Anyway, yeah, good. All right. Let's see. At Indrum 9, good morning from Mercer County. Hey, shouts to Mercer County. We struggle getting the timing of the beginning, I'm assuming, of the season right sometimes, and we start too early and sometimes too late. What are you doing in January on the farm? January is kind of our start time for a lot of stuff. So we start, not a lot of stuff, but these past few years, I've actually been putting it back a little bit more than I want to. This year, I'm going to kind of push it a little bit more to kind of just spread out the mass of the season. So we'll do onions. We start onions in January. We'll start some peppers in January. I'm thinking at the end of January, I may start on our tomatoes. A lot of people who have more infrastructure than we have will start their tomatoes like around Christmas. We're not doing that. I just don't have the infrastructure to really keep them happy and healthy all the way until I'm planting them in March or April. For us, we don't plant until the first week of April. However, because I've been doing so much grafting, the tomatoes are going to start a little bit earlier, But that's all stuff that the tomatoes, the peppers are not going to go in the tunnel, but like generally like the tomatoes and stuff, that stuff is going to come, that stuff is going to be put in the field. So it's like less of a situation of, I wouldn't start a lot of that stuff so early if I don't have a good way of covering and protecting it. So like if I'm just strictly growing out in the field, I'm probably starting my peppers in February because they just take so long. And then my tomatoes in late February, early March, probably at the earliest if I'm going to put those out in the field. Yeah. So, that's all, that all just takes some practice. I wouldn't push anything too hard that you can't protect. I mean, it's okay to be a little late. It's really, really big bummer to put all that work into something that dies early. So I would prefer to err on the side of caution if you don't have if you don't have a good system for protecting plants, especially on really cold nights. Because there was a year that we got down to 10 degrees in March, and it was just like everything had to come in, and that's brutal, right? Like in March, I usually have like potted up tomato plants, so that's a pretty brutal, change there. So that's just some things to think about. Let's see. James B asks, what are your thoughts on using nettles as a mulch? I mean, it depends on the nettles, I guess. That sounds painful a little bit. I like nettles for their nutrition. Depends on which nettles. I mean, if you're not talking about super stingy nettles, then maybe you're okay. I don't know. I mean, and also if you're talking about like a living mulch, there's a lot of competition there. I probably wouldn't go that route. I love nettles. Stinging nettle is like one of my favorite flavors. I wish we don't have a good nettle patch right now. But it is something I miss. Like I love having a good nettle patch. Cause putting that in soups and stuff, the flavor is just amazing. So anyway, I don't know would be my answer, I guess. Depends on the nettle. For the most part, I don't want those around the garden or having to, be around my hands, but good. I'm not saying it couldn't work. Maybe in like a tractor situation, if you were doing it in a living situation, maybe it could work, but, but good question. Interesting. Fred Tiny Farm asks, should I use Bermuda grass clippings in my compost? I mean, if you're definitely going to compost it well, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I would think in general, as long as you're not digging up the roots, it's not going to reroot and, you're just making sure that it gets composted. I maybe would just like put it in a bucket with some water and just like let it rot for a minute before putting it into the compost pile just for insurance. But as long as it's not like gone to seed, you're probably okay. I'm sure I've added some Bermuda grass clippings at some point to my compost, and it doesn't spread on our farm really. So, or it hasn't spread, luckily, up until this point, knock on wood. But I don't in general see a problem. Just you're avoiding weed seeds and you're avoiding, roots, then you're good. Let's see. At Baba Gardner, that's fun to say. How do you typically prep an existing bed for cucumber planting? I mean, same as kind of anything else. The one thing I'm going to do a little bit more of this year, because our cucumbers are brutal here. It's so humid. It's just brutal on the leaves. So one of the things that, like to think about with cucumber beetles is covering them early, or cucumbers is cucumber beetles. So covering them early after planting. We usually do transplant our cucumbers. And then we make sure to, try not to plant them super, super early because they really do need warm soil. And then good fertility. And the one thing that I'm going to try and add this year is a little bit of feather meal just for some longer, slower release nitrogen. And they do need a fair amount of nitrogen, but that slower release nitrogen, just like once the compost and everything's kind of worked, just add a little bit of feather meal and see if that doesn't help a little bit. And just make sure your soil is pretty well balanced. You can also just ask an agronomist too, like if they do look at your soil test, be like, I'm planning to grow cucumbers. Is there anything else here I should be, concerned with or really focusing on to make sure that I ensure that I get like, the best production possible. Keeping them covered until they start flowering really with the cucumber beetles. And, because we're not excluding, a lot of people like pro growers will exclude their entire tunnels. So basically like you have this exclusion netting on the sides, you have it, even though the sides are rolled up, it's like exclusion netting on the sides, exclusion netting on the doors, almost like a breezeway where you come in, you make sure you check for like cucumber beetles and then you walk in. And I'm not even talking about like super large scale. I'm talking about like, a lot growers that just deal with a lot of different pests. So they will go to that extent to protect from cucumber beetles because they spread mosaic virus and other things, and it's just they're obnoxious. So and they're so aggressive. They'll come first thing in the spring. As soon as they get the scent of cucumber, they're there. So they can be pretty tough. But yeah, that's kind of it. That's my sort of cucumber approach. So I'll keep you all updated on how well that goes this year. At Zwanji Farms asks, hey, Jesse, checking in from Boulder, Colorado. How have the biochar trials been going? Well, last year, the biochar trials got washed out because we got, they basically became irrelevant because a huge portion of those beds, like the middle of the bed where the biochar trial was going on, just got like hammered with rain. I think I said in the last episode or the 2 episodes ago or whatever that I think we've got almost 65 inches of rain this year. And that means and the majority of that was like March and April and May. So like the garlic beds, all that stuff. I just didn't get a good reading on it. It wasn't helpful. But I mean, I still like biochar. I still want to use more of it. In fact, what I'd love to do is get one of those like raw biochar totes and just like hang it out under like a gutter near our house for a year and then just start scooping that out and letting it like collect with, all the water and all that stuff just to kind of inoculate it a little bit, mix it with some compost and then add that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, just I'd like something more passive for the inoculation part. I'd like it in heavy bulk. But I don't know. I just haven't got around to figuring out what I would do with that or that system exactly yet. But I love biochar. I have no issues with it. I think it's I mean, every time I'm looking at the literature, I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's not a miracle worker, but it's definitely like it can do a lot of stuff. So, yeah. I mean, I think as long as you use it appropriately and, inoculate it and all those things that, and you're using the right kind of biochar, I'm all for it. I'm going to keep trialing it, but it's hard. Hey, our farm is not like, I guess if we were in, I don't know, California where you knew what the weather was more or less going to be, it would be easier. But our farm is it can be like, 64 inches of rain. The last few years it's been 40. The year before that it was like 59. And then 2 years before that it was in the 70s. And like some years are super hot, some years are super cold. So like getting any sort of, I don't know, data from that is brutal unless you just want to reserve tunnel space and you have the time to like really, really detail exactly what's happening. So I don't know. I'm into it. I'm definitely good with biochar by and large. Let's say Jess Carr asks, what tray should I grow onion seeds in? 128, 200, 128 or 200. I want to have 1 seedling per cell. I mean, I would probably go with the 128s just because I'd like to have a little bit more soil mix in there. 200s are more like something you'd use for lettuce. Or, a faster growing crop because those onion seeds are going to sit there for a while. So what I do is closer to what would be like the equivalent of a 128 for my onions. And I usually do 1 seed per cell, or sometimes I'll do 2 for like shallots. But yeah, that's what I'll do next week is I have like this 35 block soil blocker. It's a little bigger than a 128. But soil blocks to me are like a part of our fertility program. So I think of them as, anyway, I just think of that as like composting sort of. So I always like to add a little bit more, but your onions are going to grow for a while in those trays. And what you don't want is them to kind of be yellowing when you're planting them. Like you don't want to feel like rushed to get them out in March. Like you want to be like, all right, well, they're good to go. They're happy. They're healthy. They're tall. Like, let's go. So yeah, I think err on the side of slightly larger if you can. Don't have to. I'm sure some people grow in 200s, but you probably would get to the point that you're going to have to fertigate them or add some sort of fertility to them. And preferably I don't like doing that. Yeah. And let's see. D Mall 747 asks, do you have any recommendations for indoor growing, lights/irrigation, etc.? I tried strawberries in my basement last year with no luck. I grow almost nothing indoors. I'm not a very good resource for that. I guess my recommendation would probably be to find somebody who really does grow professionally indoors, because there's a lot of like, I don't know, amateur people who grow indoors and they probably do a good job, but there's lots of people who do it professionally. And those would be people I would kind of lean on just to see what their recommendations are. But I mean, there's lots of ways to do it. I think growing something all the way to fruit inside, like in a basement, would be tough. Like for me, if all the growing space I had was indoors, I'd probably just lean into mushrooms and then get my fruit and everything else from somebody else. because that's just onion, mushrooms and that sort of stuff. That's like what they want, is like dark and humid and all those things. So it's just, it can be tough, because then you also have to think about like carbon dioxide levels and, air movement and all these things. For me, I don't know. I like, that's a whole other complicated sort of almost chemistry thing that you would have to figure out. Some people are into it, though. I mean, there's a lot of cool engineering around that. So, yeah, I don't know that I have great advice for that. I wish I could be more helpful. I'm going to take one quick break here to give another shout out to one of our sponsors. This one is from Farm Raised Tracks. Still using QuickBooks for your farm's bookkeeping? You're wasting time and losing money. Farm finances can be overwhelming, but they don't have to be. Farm Raised Tracks is the all-in-one tool built just for farmers. Manage expenses, prep for taxes, run payroll, and plan for the future without spreadsheets or stress. Just clear, organized insights to keep your operation thriving. Thousands of farmers trust Tracks to make financial decisions all year long. If it's time you did too, use code NOTIL20. That's capital NOTIL, all caps, 2020 for 20% off the life of your membership. Visit farmraise.com to learn more. Yeah, big shout out to them. I mean, all of our sponsors, like, this is cool that we have these people who are willing to put in, to help us to keep this information just keep going and free and open to anyone and everyone. Let's get back to our questions, though. We appreciate you all being here on New Year's Eve. I don't know if anybody had any big morning plans for their New Year's Eve, but happy to be sharing the time with you all. And make sure to get your questions in again to Mike. He's sitting there in the chat. You can also just say hi to Mike. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer your questions. I just threw him in there. He's going to be like, Jesse, I'm a little busy here, but he'll enjoy that. All right. Let's see, at 72cc star asked, quote, "Happy New Year to everyone. At Farmer Jesse, is seed buying always a tedious nightmare? Sifting through different sites and catalogs for each single variety you grow and adding to the shopping cart." I mean, it can be. I don't think it, like, usually once you've done this for a while, you're not really venturing that far out. Like, you're getting the staples that you need, and then maybe you're like, oh, I need a new tomato, or I'm willing to try like this new cherry tomato. Like, I always try a few different things every year. That isn't to say like it gets boring or whatever, like or that it's, that there isn't tedium to it on the other side of it. But I think for me, I kind of enjoy getting it done. I don't think it usually takes me about a day, but I don't know, the way my brain is, like, when I start on a project like that, I just focus on it until it's over and out of my brain. So like, I don't know, for me, like, I know what I'm going to order for the most part. I have a good idea of how much I need of what. And then I knock those things out, and then I just start like adding the other little bits and pieces that I want to trial, or that, whatever that look new or interesting. For the most part, you'll find that professional growers, unless they're growing for like, culinary purposes, like for chefs that really want new and interesting things all the time. We don't like just, it's the seed catalogs are, I almost never, I have probably 10 of them behind me because they send me so many, but I almost never even really look at them, because it can get overwhelming in that way. Like, it just isn't helpful to me. So usually what I do is I just, I go back to my spreadsheet. I know what I want. I copy that into my other spreadsheet, my new spreadsheet for the new year. And then I will, look at I'll get my garden plan together, and I'll start looking and making sure everything makes sense. And then I'll, just have a list of what I need. I'll go through an order and just tick it off. And then that's and then that's it. And then I get my seeds a few weeks later. I just got some more yesterday. And then usually what's weird is that I used to do our seed ordering in like January. Like, I used to pretty much be able to reliably get everything I wanted in January. And then COVID happened, and then suddenly, like, things were harder to get. So like for 2020 and 2021, we found that, like, it was really, really tough to get what you wanted. So we started ordering in December. And that was fine. I mean, there wasn't a big deal, but now I don't think it's quite as bad. But that there for a minute, it was like they didn't have the numbers, and that was kind of I don't know, difficult, because we had to find different crops. But yeah, that was the only time that's ever really been a problem. I mean, ordering even as late as February, oftentimes we're ordering like a big chunk, and then I'll order like I'll get my fall plan together after I see how the season's going. Maybe I've talked to some new chefs, or I've seen an opportunity here or there. So oftentimes I'll save some of the stuff to order like in bulk later. just because I often have to add new things anyway. So yeah, that's kind of the strategy, I guess. Let's see. At Haramark asks, beetle grubs. Why can't I find more information online? They are a major problem here in the tropics. Do you know anything about seasonality? What are the best practices to reduce their impact? I feel like last year I answered a question about this. Was this for you, Mark? Oh, Mark Hare. Yeah, this is right. I don't know. I mean, there's not a ton of information online about them. I Yeah, I don't know offhand. I mean, I think there's like nematode potential. I think that there's some shallow tillage that you could do too, to just like, that's the same thing with the jumping worms. I'm going to talk about that maybe tomorrow or Friday, one of those days. I have that on the list. But yeah, I mean, it's, that you could just do that top layer that could help. I don't know. I mean, grubs are like not the same. Like for us, most of the grubs are innocuous. Like we don't have problematic grubs so much here in the semi subtropics or whatever you'd want to call it. So yeah, it's not so much of an issue. But yeah, you're right. I don't see a lot of stuff online about that, and I think part of that is just like there's not maybe the level of production of like large scale production there that there is here, and for certain crops that would be affected by it, that's where a lot of the research goes. So like we don't get a lot of research for small scale production that's so specified like that, because there's just not the interest from the big growers who draw the interest from the big companies who are willing to help fund the research for those kind of problems, unfortunately. So yeah, that's it's unfortunate. I mean, that's why we have like some of this stuff has to be funded by the government, because nobody else is going to do it for they don't have any economic reason to do it. So like, unless somebody else is losing significant crops to that particular pest, then then we won't see it quite as much. Got a super chat from Blue Raven. Richard Gould recently scored a massive pile of leaves. Score, good for you. Outside of space savings, there is benefit or drawback to going tall, something like 10 foot tall. I mean, is there a benefit or drawback? I mean, it's going to crush down with something like leaves. I guess I could see a problem with it being too tall and thin, and maybe even potentially like a fire hazard. It's not super likely. I'd make sure to keep it super wet, but I think more than likely, like, I think generally they say that 4 or 5 foot windrow is better than like tall, because a lot of what happens is there in the center, it gets just like crushed and compacted, and it doesn't really decompose very well, doesn't get enough moisture. So that would be the one thing, especially with the leaves, is it just doesn't get quite the amount of moisture maybe that you would want there in the bottom. Just thinking about this out loud, I mean, I haven't really put any energy into researching it, but I mean, that's where I would say is like, usually there's a reason that people go for that like 4 to 6 foot furrow. Because you can get more easily into the middle to kind of just stir it and stuff. So yeah, I would maybe kind of go a little bit wider or go in a furrow, just to keep that. You want it maybe whatever that would be, like 8 feet by 4 feet or something, long furrow if you have the space. But if you don't have the space, I mean, do what you can, and then just keep it moist. Just make sure that it has the moisture it needs to rock and roll. But thanks for the super chat. Shouts to you. Let's see. Fred Tiny Farm writes, I'm starting a new farm. Is it okay to use PVC pipe in my irrigation system? I have some PVC pipe in my irrigation system. It's not ideal, but it helps for transporting water. There's like blue lay flat and stuff that may be a better option. That's just like, we had it for years from this other system that we had, so we just kept using it, because by that point, a lot of those, I don't know, the PVC chemicals have like worn. I mean, this is it. Whatever, like not ideal, but that's the situation that we have. But yeah, I mean, I think there are other options like blue lay flat, black. There's a lot of like black poly and stuff that you could use instead. But if like you already have a bunch of PVC pipe, I wouldn't necessarily waste it. Yeah, I mean, not ideal, but that's how I see it, I guess. Let's see. At Gilly writes, Dear Farmer Nerd, or Dr. Farmer Nerd, I've got a question. What's your favorite companion planting in spring to keep/deter pests? I don't do a lot of companion planting. Let's see. The only one that I can really think of that kind of fits those lines is that I do plant sweet alyssum with our tomatoes. And that is as much to bring in pollinators as to bring in the braconid wasp. The braconid wasp is the one that parasitizes the hornworms. So that is like, that's the one that plants those little white things in them. Love that. Very cool to see that. But that's probably the one major one. I used to grow a lot of nasturtiums with our cucumbers to help deter with cucumber beetles. I don't know that it actually worked. Like sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. Couldn't tell you. I don't know if I do any other ones. I mean, really for me, it's just like have flowers, flowers, as many flowers as you can get around your property, on your property, just all the flowers. That to me is like, that's that's going to be your most effective means of bringing in beneficials, of bringing in pollinators and all the things that you want. So it's kind of a generic answer, but just work on your local ecology. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Let's see. Hold on one second. All right. Great question. Love that. Thank you to everybody for your questions. At Fruit Pruning Channel, I'm going to do some fruit pruning soon. Actually, I got to prune our tomato trees. I wish our apple and pear trees. That'll be fun. They ask. I just spread out biochar on top of my beds that are heavily mulched with wood chips. Will the biochar slowly absorb nutrients if the mulch breaks down without robbing the soil under the mulch? Assuming, so they're on top of the beds that are heavily mulched. So if they're underneath of the mulch, I think it's probably fine. If they're on top of the mulch, it's probably fine. I can't really see a problem with either. I think if they're under the mulch, they're more likely to absorb, nitrogen right where they're touching. But as long as they're not worked into the soil or where you're growing, I don't see a huge issue with that. Over time, as it gets wet and as it stuff around it decomposes, they'll slowly absorb, some of the nitrogen and some of the, nutrients and that sort of stuff. It may be worth occasionally just going over top of those beds with some compost tea just to kind of help the process along. But I don't see an immediate issue as long as it's not down there by the root zone. You're probably fine. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, like it will work its way. It will work itself out, but it could take a little time for that to really really get inoculated. But yeah, I don't see any major problem with it. Let's see. At Nicholas D. Marist writes, would Dutch clover work as a living mulch around fruit trees? Sure. Yeah. We have some clover around our fruit trees. You just kind of have to keep it from like getting too far up on the, up against the not the stems. I'm such a vegetable farmer. Against the stalk of the tree. What's the term? Against the bark, right? You don't want it to collect too much moisture right around the bark. But that's really only a problem when they're young, right? As they get bigger and they leaf out, they're going to shade that out and it's not going to be a problem. So I don't see any major issue with it. I think that's like a lot of like perennial growers, viticulturalists and stuff will use it in the pathways. And then as it gets taller, you can cut it and throw it on nearer to the roots, and then it'll break down and feed those roots. So that's good. I don't see any major issue. And you have those, and if you let it flower a little bit, you'll get some of those beneficials in there too, some bees and stuff. So that's also a plus. Drink here. Got my Brighton and Hove Albion mug. Even though we drew yesterday with West Ham, wasn't my favorite. But you know what? I'll take a point. We'll take the point. We'll move on. Let's see. Oh, look, we even got looks like we even got a soccer question. Do you, at Excel writes, do you have any gripes with FPL rules /structure? I find the lack of official injury news and the lineup locking before the first match of the week very frustrating. This is pretty common because I'm actually pretty used to that, because in college basketball, they are often super guarded. I mean, it's pretty much any whatever. They are really guarded about who's injured and who's not injured. All the coaches are. So especially in college basketball, they'll toy around with you the whole week, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, that person's fine. He's coming in the game. And I think it's just, it's a competitive thing. But no, I think in general, and this is not exactly an answer to your question, but in general, I think soccer has the best rules. I think it has the most watchable. I think it's the most watchable game because it's all about game flow. Like, they're not sitting there nitpicking whether or not he takes the throw in 5 feet, or, like exactly where the ball went out. They're not nitpicking whether or not the ball like absolutely 100% went out of bounds. Like all of those things, like playing the advantage, all the rules, it's just better for the viewer and it just keeps the game flow. There's no commercials. It's just the best game to watch. So in general, like I wish I wish there were more rules with every other sport that follow soccer rules versus soccer rules changing, because I think most of the soccer rules are actually great for the viewer. And they're not just like nitpicking all the fairness that every other, like basketball is so annoying like that. Like it feels like everything has to be reviewed and all the little things. And I know VAR kind of does that, but no, love it. I mean, generally, no. It's pretty par for the course, I think. But yeah, but in general, I love the rules. At in bar S microgreens. Good to see you. Happy New Year's, Jesse, and all. Happy New Year's to you. Do you have any suggestions for organically treating bicarbonate in the irrigation water? I'm certified. All my irrigation consultants give me not certifiable solutions. I don't know. I actually have not run into that. I have not actually heard that. Are there any filter options for that? Are there any? I mean, that would be the only thing that I would maybe think would come to mind, is just some sort of filtration option. There are some, high volume filters, but I don't know about like treating bicarbonate. Yeah, that's a good question. If anybody in the chat has any experience with that, put it in there, because that would be helpful to them. But yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, it's not one I've come across. I feel like we just answered a question about tannins. It's interesting, some of the things that we find from various areas of people dealing with various things in their irrigation water, their well water, their groundwater. And they're so oftentimes so specific. So yeah, it's not one I've come across, but yeah, if anybody has any info, they can put it in the chat. At Rich M writes, what do you think about FPJ fermented plant juice foliar spray? That's a Nigel Palmer videos making it from comfrey or nettles, claims great benefits from these as deep-rooted mineral bioaccumulators. Real? I don't know that I would say real or not real. I think that all of these things can be really beneficial to like all these Korean natural farming, jadam preparations. All these things can be really beneficial to soil and plants, like whether or not they have all the effects of like that sometimes they're purported to have. I mean, more often than not, it's a combination of things, right? Like you still have to have your moisture delivery really well, calculated and managed. You still have to have your, the heat has to be right, the timing of the crop, all the little details still have to be executed well for any of this stuff to work. Will it be beneficial? Yeah, but we're like that 80% to get you to the point that the crop is like really, really producing usually is really simple stuff. Just like good moisture levels, good tilth in the soil, good fertility, like general fertility, timing at the planting at the right time. And then when you add these other things, then you're kind of working on that last 20%. But like, yeah, I think I like some of those things. I like adding them in. But for me, I once you get into production for a while, you're just like, let me make the best compost I can. Let me do these sorts of things when I can. But for the most part, like I'm focused on making a good compost, adding some other amendments just to kind of enrich it, and then, rolling with that. And that does like 90% of what I need it to do. If you have the time though, sure. I mean, I like a lot of these. I still use, like, I don't do the IMO stuff so much, but I'll still use some of those ideas about like collecting some, native fungi on rice. Like we'll cook rice, we won't use it all. I'll take it out. I'll find a way to get it inoculated with some of the local microbiology, rather. And then I will mix that into some grains. I'll make like a really quick, and I think I even talk about this in the book, like a very similar one to that, where I'll just make like a quick compost, or a quick like sort of compost with that grain mixture with the fungi, and then I'll mix that into our compost, and then I won't like make a big deal out of it. I won't make like IMO 3 and 4 and all these things. I don't really like go through it. I just do the basic idea. I just implement that. And then, yeah, the genome microorganism solution, super easy. It's just really easy for me to bake a potato, throw it in some water with some compost. And then the next day I just use that for whatever I want because it's fermented enough. So yeah, I try and simplify it, but I have no issues with those. I think it can. I don't know what the research says, but I think it can be helpful. So yeah, good question. At Robert Freer asks, "Hi Jesse, Harlequin beetles are killing my brassica dreams. Any tips besides row cover insect netting?" No, Harlequin beetles are the worst. Good fertility. If a healthier crop, they'll get through it. Just make sure that they have the adequate nitrogen and that you plant them at the right time, that you protect them, just to get them established, that they're watered in really well. But no, we've been having harlequin beetle issues too. And, they just make things so annoying because they just move from one crop to the other. They're so resilient. So our plan for this year is to slow down our brassica production mid-season just to not keep them going. Cause I feel like one of the things I've been doing is I have a good spring production and then I try some unnecessary summer brassicas and then I have a worse fall production because I basically over summered them. So that wasn't smart. So I think what I need to be doing is good early spring production on brassicas, cut it out for the summer, like have a good gap, and then do some good fall production. Because I think having that extended period there just keeps anything that's going, it just keeps them breeding and going. And they just, that becomes the problem. But yeah, harlequin beetles are the worst. That's the one pest I still struggle with. Them and a little bit of cucumber beetles. Those are like the two that are really frustrating for us. But a lot of that too is brassicas hated here. They like cold nights and stuff. Like we don't have those. We don't have those. I mean, we have cold nights now, but we also have, it's cold days. So like, I think, yeah, also timing your plantings and getting the right crops will help too. So yeah. Let's see. Let me get a drink of water here. At James B asks, what is your favorite I've never had to say this word out loud. Parthenocarpic cucumber variety to grow. I think the one that we're growing this year is, I'm forgetting. I mean, all the classic ones. We don't grow anything unusual. I may be able to even find it here real quick, but we don't grow any, like, we're not like reaching out far beyond what anybody else is growing. Let's see. We ordered the, sorry, this is probably really interesting to listen to. Is it the Katrina? I think it's Katrina. But yeah, I mean, right? Yeah, I think it's the Katrina. But yeah, I mean, we don't, yeah, and maybe the Socrates is another one we've grown in the past, but nothing fancy. Like with the cucumbers, we're just trying to get good, long cucumbers that are happy and healthy and rocking and rolling so that they, especially early in the spring when they don't necessarily need all that pollination. Nothing fancy, super, super normal stuff. Let's see. But good question. I'm going to keep working on our cucumbers are like that's my white whale, I think, that's the one that I really want to nail this year. At Anna Pulvermache, could be Matcher, writes, "Hi, Jesse. Sparkamus here." Oh, Sparkamus, hi. Love these live Q&As. Sitting here with my coffee. What books are on the bookshelf behind you? Let's see. I don't know. Let me see what you all can see, and then I'll figure out what I've got here. All right. So starting where? Here? All right. So Soil Science, Humanure Handbook. It's a good one. The Worms Eat My Garbage, Hidden Half of Nature, Worm Farmer's Handbook. Lots of worm stuff over here. Mycorrhizal Planet, Secret Life of Fungi, Mycelium Mayhem, Mycelium Running. That's classic. Teaming With series, Jadam, No Till Vegetable Farm, Uncorking the Past. Shouts to him who passed away this year, McGovern. Regenerative Grower's Guide to Garden Amendments. Isn't that, that's Nigel Palmer. We were just talking about him. We were just talking about those amendments. That's a good book. And then Mushroom Farming. There's some of my book here. There's like the French versions. Le Maraîchage Écologique, sans labeur. I love that they say sans labor, right? Sans labor. And that's like without work. And then, there's a bunch. It's mostly just farming books. There's a bunch of seed books. I got Dan's book over here. The Organic Grower Seed. That's a good one. That's a classic. This one, I actually think that Sarah was giving these out for a while. This one from John Navazio. That's a crazy detailed book. And I remember that I got this one for free at like a conference or something because Sarah was giving them out. But it is like a crazy detailed book. Like if you want to get into seed production, get this and get Dan's book. The Organic Seed Farmer, I think, or the Seed Farmer book is the name of Dan Brisebois' book. Yeah, I mean, most of the classics, right? Like you got, we read a lot of like all the same stuff that everybody else does, right? The Lean Farmer, and I get all the regular Chelsea Green story, all those. So yeah, lots of good ones. And feel free if you have any questions about any of those and how I feel about them. I think I've read almost all of them. Let me see. All right. What does shallow tillage mean? Oh, hey, Mark. Yeah, shallow tillage is like with a tilther, like, couple inches, few inches, just depends on how deep those grubs are. If they're super deep, like if they're in your rhizosphere, that's a different story. I mean, maybe you could do like just an occasional one-time tillage. That's not my preference, but like a lot of times when you're dealing with stuff that is collecting over and over and over again, right? It's contextual. That's just the situation that you're in. And as long as you're willing to do all the other stuff and beg forgiveness with cover crops and good composting and all those things, like I'm not going to like fret the occasional tillage as long as you treat it well and make sure that you get it recovered and mulched or whatever you need to do, because you're in a tropical situation. Like that's very different from what somebody is doing, up in like Montana versus somebody down in Southern California. Like these are very different contexts. So you just have to deal with what your context is. And I know, Mark, you deal with a lot of like nematode issues and stuff, and maybe some of that could be treated with like the occasional, tillage interruption. I don't know. And as long as you, like I always think about, sometimes that's going to happen, right? Disturbances happen in nature no matter what. It's just about reclaiming that soil. A lot of crops do really well after, some amount of disturbance, as long as it's not repetitive and you're not just constantly beating up, you're really thoughtful about how you do it. But yeah, a shallow, like with a tilter or something, I'm generally fine with that. And also make sure to get your questions in. Mike is there in the chat. I feel like I have a bunch of new people here, so I should mention that. So make sure to get your questions into Mike, and I will answer them here as much as I can. I've got probably like 15 more minutes. But yeah, and shout out Mike. He does a lot of work for us. So really happy to have him on board and chilling with us today. At Stephen Carey writes, "Hi, Jesse. Horns, multi-sown onions or singles. Cheers, keep it up." Well, usually I think I'm going to talk about this a little bit tomorrow. It'll be in the episode, but usually depends. Like with something like shallots, I usually go 2 seeds per, 2 to 3. With something like red onions, white onions, and yellow onions, I usually go 1, 2 seeds. Like I want a handful of 2-seeders, but and yeah, like that is like, especially if you want to pull some early, I found that putting 3 or 4 in can be helpful, in that like you can go through and thin out the smaller ones and you sell those as green onions or like fresh onions, and then the others kind of size up a little better. That works. It's not my favorite. But you can get, like, if you do it that way, you can end up getting like a huge amount of profit out of a small bed of onions, like a 50-foot bed of, well, by ours are like 50 by 4 feet, but 200 square feet or whatever that is of onions. Like you can end up getting multiple crops, right? Because you get that first thinning, you get maybe a second thinning, and then you get, like the bigger onions at the end, and then you can sell those later. So it ends up being like a pretty good amount of money. Like each thing ends up being like $3 or so worth of profit, or of gross. So yeah, if you have whatever that would be, I don't know, 450-ish little plantings of 2 or 3 seeds in a thing, then yeah, it ends up adding up. So yeah, I'm good with either. But I think if you want big onions, right? For some people that'll make more sense. For us, like, big onions never really made a lot of sense. People usually in our market wanted, like, I don't know, baseball, slightly smaller than baseball size onions. Like they weren't looking for like Walla Walla onions. And oftentimes when we grew Walla Wallas, they were hard to sell because they were just like, oh, that's cool. What do you got that's smaller? So we got to the point when we stopped trying to grow super big onions. But it depends a little bit on your market for sure. Have you seen Elliot Coleman's latest book? Curious your thoughts on a 19th month. Oh, this is at Inbar S Microgreens. Curious your thoughts on a 19-month 2-winter rye and vetch cover crop that self-seeds between the winters. I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to that, I guess. I think like it would be a little bit hard for weed control, I think, because what are you doing in the summer? In a really cold climate, you could probably get away with it because you have to think like up in Maine, up in Montana, up in those areas, like your rye is not going to seed in May like it is here in Kentucky. Like it's going to seed in August. So like, yeah, for them, like that makes a decent amount of sense. But for us, like we have too long of a summer to get away with that, I think. Maybe not. I mean, I've done things where I've gone season after season with cover crops. I think I talked about this recently that I had a plot, an extra plot in our long season crops that I would basically just cover crop for a year and then plant garlic. And then that way our garlic did really well and the crops that came after did really well. And then I could take that, whatever the next plot it was going into, out for an entire year, do one winter cover crop, do one summer cover crop, then do one winter cover crop, and then, move on. You could do that and it was cool. But yeah, I don't know about that particular one. I have seen his book. I feel like I have it. Maybe I have a digital copy. I have one or the other. At David Penfold writes, labor means both work and plowing, by the way. Yeah, that's sorry, I should have specified that that's what they're talking about is not plowing. It's how it works, but the word labor means work. So it's, it kind of works. Like it's like no work, not to work your soil. I didn't really like elaborate on that, but yeah, thank you, David. That is a good clarification there. Let's see. I can take at least a couple more here, but I'm going to take at RD. This one is a super chat. Looks like at RD Guys 787484. When it comes to growing in the high desert with minimal water and low microbial counts and organic matter, does it make sense to tilther to get microbial counts up and then move to less no-till? Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense depending on what you're growing, right? Like it's oftentimes it is the crop and the soil that's determining what we're doing and not like our idea of what the perfect approach is, right? Like if you're dealing with, soil that doesn't have a lot of organic matter, you're going to have to get it in there somehow. So that's either cover crops and or compost and just good production. And I've seen where people can grow like like baby greens and stuff and just do fast turnover using like a tilter of sorts, like a power harrow or a tilter or something. Like they mow it, they power harrow tilter, they add a little bit more compost or whatever, and then just keep planting. And you can build soil that way. Like it will build soil, even though you're working that top like 2 inches or so. There's no one right way to do it. Just depends on what you're growing and how much you want to grow. I mean, I think, let me think if I can think anything else about that. I mean, your water is going to be one of your biggest limiting factors because moisture is how microbes do their thing, right? Like they need water. So if you can figure out ways to maintain that water, maybe a mulch is a more sensible approach in that way. Combining a mulch with a good watering regime, however you have water. In terms of microbial diversity and microbial biomass, like a lot of that will depend on, on just how much, water you have really, and how you treat your soil. But yeah, I mean, and I saw that Mark said, I don't know what a tilter is. Tilters, I actually have one here. Actually, I just got one from Johnny, so I'll show you. This is a tilter. So it's like a miniature, super miniature tiller that runs on a drill. And it, these tines spin, they're just going like a couple inches into the soil, depending on how much you adjust the depth. So you can go deeper, you can go a little bit more shallow, but it just gives you a little bit of tilth to work with. So it looks like, I don't know if you can see that. Looks like that. Yeah, it's got like handles. Yep. And it runs on a drill. Didn't think you'd get some show and tell today, did you? That was fun. All right. So I think, let me see. I've got one more ad read and then I'll answer one more question maybe, and we will rock and roll out of here, I think. we'll say shout out to our friends at Farmhand. They say farmers who partner with Farmhand grew an average of 63% this year because it's more than just software. Farmhand is your business coach and assistant, helping you to sell out, save time, and grow smarter with real data from real farms, shaping websites that convert, campaigns that sell, and fulfillment systems that run smoothly. Curious what that looks like? Meet the founder, Ari, at farmhand.partner/no-till and see the same insights and support that the fastest growing farms rely on every week. That's farmhand.partner/no-till. And all right, I think we're good on questions. So really appreciate you all coming out. I hope everyone has a happy and safe New Year's. We need all the farmers we can get and growers. So you all stay safe this evening. Don't forget, No-Till Growers is now officially a 501c3 nonprofit, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's a super helpful way to help us out. If you want to hit the like button there on YouTube, that's super helpful to us. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at no-tillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for everything in the world. Also shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can't hear, but usually can because Mike is doing this in post. Anyway, pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at no-tillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of January, because now, or December, I guess, because we're still got a few hours left, but you get a shout out on the show. But we will usually do those, during the week. But today we'll do it and we'll not do it. We'll do that tomorrow. Thanks for watching live and or listening later. We will see you next year. Bye, y'all.